Today we're in the Chiz Kitchen and we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving. We've got a turkey here. We're going to be talking about how to cook it, how to possibly brine it, how many pounds you're going to need to feed everybody, just a couple of the basics so that in case your Thanksgiving this year looks different than it has in the past. Maybe you aren't going to be able to get to some family. Maybe your mom or your aunt or your grandma always cooked the turkey, and this is the year that you're not going to be able to get to their house, so you're going to try it. And we're going to try to simplify that and make it easy enough so that anyone can cook a turkey, some stuffing, have a pie, a couple of sides, and have a good Thanksgiving. First thing I want to talk about is how big of a bird you're going to need. Usually about 1 to 1.5 pounds of turkey per person. If you want to have a lot of leftovers, you're going to go more towards the 1.5 pounds per person. If you're just not really concerned with having leftover turkey, go closer to the 1 pound. So if you were going to have 10 people, you'd go anywhere from a 10 to 15 pound turkey, depending on how much you might want to have left over. So that's what you're going to use as a guide. The next thing you're going to want to do for how I do a turkey, I do it on a slow roast, which means I've got my oven set at 325. So get your oven set and come on over here with me, and we're going to look at the bird. I've got a little over a 10-pound turkey in here today, and we're going to start at the very beginning. This is going to have some not so friendly stuff in the middle of it. Okay, and we're gonna get our hands in here and pull this out. And actually, I'm gonna get some water running, because what we want to do, I want just some tepid water, only because I don't like it too cold. We're gonna pull out the insides, and actually you can still see there's a little bit of ice. I'm not too worried about that, because it's mainly with I guess these are all called gizzards. So I think that's about it in my bird. Sometimes you're going to find it in a bag. You'll have a whole bag of stuff in there. Sometimes, maybe it's up in the front. Hey, it is. Okay, look in the neck area. I just found this whole bag full of, I believe this is probably the gizzard, heart, and liver. I think that's what that is. And it was the neck that was in the main cavity. So now we'll just take a minute. We'll rinse all this off. Again, back in here. Cleaning it all out. Okay. There we go. All right, so then the next important step here is to dry it. Have an old kitchen towel. I keep some old ones around specifically for doing this. Okay, I'm going to let them drain a little bit. Get all that extra water out if you can. All right, you can see it's just pouring right out there at the beginning. Okay, now we're over here. We're going to dry off Mr. Bird. And that's basically because when we rub him with butter or oil or herbs or whatever, we want that to stick better. And if he's wet, nothing is going to, it won't stick. So let's dry him off the best we can. It's just like drying off one of the kids, okay? Get in all the nooks and crannies. Okay, we're going to get in the legs here because we want to make sure that when we put that butter or oil on the bird, that we get it in all those areas too. So again, around the wings. All right. Okay, pretty good. Now you can follow me. I'm going to come over here to a work surface. And I've just got another old towel. And I would suggest having a couple of old towels around. You don't have to. You could do this right on you know, a cutting board or on your table. But having him set on a towel right now is going to keep him from slipping and sliding all over the place. So, one of the next things we want to talk about is butter. You can use oil or butter on your turkey, and basically that's going to help brown it. I prefer butter because I think it gives it a little more flavor. And we in our house mix our butter with some spices. We have a little Cajun spice. You could use any spice blend that you have. I know like McCormick has like a chicken spice. Or you can just use salt and pepper in it. You don't have to. This can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. If your family doesn't care for a lot of spice or anything like that, just use salt and pepper. And you can even use oil, like I said, on the outside. So, whichever you prefer is what you should go with. So at this point, I'm going to take a little butter and I'm going to just start rubbing it on the bird. And it's not fun and it's not easy. It's going to be a kind of a messy process. But we'll get it going. One of the other things, you see I didn't dry them really well, and that's part of the problem over here. You're going to want to, like I said, make sure you dry it as good as you possibly can. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to show you here. I'm going to lift up the skin between the breast. See, I'm making a pocket. This is your breast right here. Okay, here's the feet. There's that cavity. If you go right here and just lift up the skin gently, because you don't want to poke a hole in there, and just throw some gobs of butter right in there. That's going to help tenderize it. Take it and then just kind of mush it right in. Mush it all under the skin there. You can get it down into the thigh area, which is over here by the leg. We'll get it over on the other side too. Pushing that in there. Get this on the best, like I said, the best you can. And I probably have more than what's really needed here. And if this isn't working for you, like I said, I'm having a little bit of trouble here today. And to be honest, it is partly my own fault because I did not dry it really well. You can always, like I said, use oil and just a baster and baste it all with oil. And then if you're going to do that, you just want to use some salt and pepper. Or again, you could use a spice mix. Either one of those is fine. Again, like I said, that's really just to help with the coloring. There we go. All right. As you can see, it's a very messy process. So I'm going to just, take some paper towels here, wipe my hands off really quick, and look at some notes. Okay, we're going to talk about a pan now. I usually go to the dollar store and buy, they have like the oven or the turkey roasting pans. That's the best thing. When you're done, after this turkey comes out of the oven, you can just fold it up and toss it out in your recyclables. No work for you. So I didn't get down there. This is not an actual turkey roasting pan, but since I have a small turkey, I believe this should fit in there. You want something at least a couple of inches tall so that any juices that form in there won't be lost. The other thing that you might want to do is put this on a rack. I don't have an actual baking rack that will fit into this pan, so I have two options. I can either take some tin foil, wad it up into 4 little balls, and put it into the corners here and set the turkey on it, or I can use what we call our aromatics, which are our onions. In this case, I just kind of looked in the fridge and saw what I had. So I have some onions, celery, leeks, and some carrots. I've already rinsed off these leeks for the most part. So I'm just going to kind of use them in here on the bottom to, there we go. And then we'll take an onion. We're just going to roughly cut it in half. Peel off the skin. And I'm going to use half the onion, or 1/4 of the onion, and put it into the cavity of the turkey. I'll use the rest of it here in the baking pan. We're just going to, again, set this in here so that that turkey has something to set on. We're going to take a couple of stalks of celery, and we're not going to eat these, so I'll rinse this really quick, but I'm not going to be too worried about it. I've got my dog in the way, that's why I'm leaving. So, quick rinse there. And some more paper towels. Just gonna cut those ends off. And you can leave the greens even on this. That actually, there's a lot of, you know, if you smell them, that's where a lot of the green smell comes from. So go ahead, just, what we're doing again is still just making this little rack in the bottom. I'm going to throw a few carrots in. Actually, I'm going to take two. I think I'll take one of these of celery. Stuff it in there since we had it so much of it. Take this other one too. There we go. A little celery. We had a little onion. We'll throw a few more carrots in here. We'll throw a few carrots in there. And there we go. Normally, too, I have a fresh herb garden, and I actually forgot I was going to go out and then clip off maybe some thyme, some rosemary, some fresh sage, and that too can be put in the bottom of here and into the cavity of the bird. Again, just those aromas kind of just feed into the bird as it's slowly roasting, and just for subtle flavors. You're not going to taste any one of these things specifically. It's just, the word aromatic is really just talking about the scent, the smell. So, let's move some of this out of the way. We're going to now get this bird into a pan. You know what I'm going to do too, and it's helpful. That little hole right here that we took the legs out of at the beginning, to kind of help get them back into your pan, stick them right back in there. If your bird did not come with that little opening with the legs secured, sometimes they come with a plastic little closure piece around them, or sometimes they don't have anything. If they don't, you may want to go purchase some cooking twine and tie them up. That'll just help keep the uniformity of the bird while it's cooking so that it's not sprawled all over. So, here we go, into the pan. It is just going to fit, and that worked perfectly as far as all those things. I can tell that there's probably about an inch underneath. Now, what I'm going to do is take the wing. I'm going to kind of pull it straight out so he's got his arm or his wing straight in the air. Then I'm going to take it, I'm going to fold it right underneath there. And that's what I did with the other ones, so they're folded right under where the neck is. And that kind of helps keep it up in the air too. So now he's in there pretty good. He's in there tight. All right. So, again, at this point, I'm just going to throw a little salt and pepper over the whole thing. Into that cavity, as you can see, there's that cavity. I'm going to wash my hands real quick and grab some salt in them. That's the one thing you want to remember too when you're working with the poultry, is just to not cross-contaminate. If you're working with it, a lot of times too, I'll put gloves on, just some basic They're like a cooking glove. I think we buy them in Wegmans. And that'll just kind of help keep your hands from constantly touching the bird when you want to be touching other stuff too. Okay, so salt was where we were at. Just take a couple of teaspoons again, and most of it's going right in the cavity. There we go. Whoop. Okay, now there's a couple of different ideas on how to actually roast the turkey. What we're going to do is insert a thermometer, but I didn't get it out. So just a moment while I come over. I'm going to grab a thermometer. There's two different types you can get. You could get an oven thermometer where here's your thermometer base. This plugs in here, and then the probe goes into your piece of meat. In this case, it would be the turkey. And that coil allows you to read the temperature outside the oven while Mr. Turkey is inside the oven. Great tool if you have it, but totally not necessary. What I would suggest, though, I'm not big on pop-up timers on turkeys, and I noticed this one does not even have one, which is fine because I don't use them. This is just an instant read thermometer. You follow your timetable for your turkey. They usually come on the wrapper. This was a Butterball turkey. I saved the info. When you get your turkey, they all come with this. It should give you the timetable saying, in this case, like I said, this was about a 10-pound turkey. It's telling me that a 10 to 18-pound turkey is going to cook for about 3 to 3.5 hours. So again, I'm going to maybe want to start checking it then at say 2.5, just to see where it is. But I want to show you one thing really quick, and I'm going to do it with this probe thermometer. The best place to put the thermometer is in the thick part of the thigh. So here's your leg. Here's the base of the leg. Bruce, move. And we're going to insert that thermometer right down in there. Now there is a bone all the way in there too, so you want to be sure that you're not touching the bone. But you want to get that in there. So now that is the same spot that I would check if I was even just using the regular instant read thermometer. The top of the thigh at the top of the leg is where you want to check. So I'm not going to use this today. I just really wanted to show you. I'm going to use my instant read because that is just what I prefer. But we're going to get this ready. We're going to cover it with some foil. Just regular tin foil. And we're just covering it loosely. We don't want it to be on there really tight. So I just lightly fold it under the sides of the pan just to kind of keep it in place. The bird's there, the air can get around it very easily with no problems. And let's see, we are now about ready. I believe the oven has beeped. It's totally preheated. So we're going to take this over to the oven. Tripping on dog toys. So this is just a real home. Make sure that you've got your racks down towards the bottom. If you have a really big turkey, you may need to take and only have the bottom rack in. I'm going to be able to fit this on the second to the bottom rack. I'm going to close the door, take a look at the time. I'm going to set it right now, my timer. Like I said, it told me 2 to 2.5, so I'm going to put this at about, 2.5 hours. And we'll come back and check on it. We'll see how we're doing at that point. And the only other thing I want to say right now is please don't stress about a turkey or your sides. The whole idea is being able to enjoy your Thanksgiving and to make it to the degree where you want it to be. It can be very simple, or you can make it very extravagant. The whole idea is to make sure that you're having fun while you're doing it. So we'll be back in a little bit and we'll check on the turkey. Okay, so the turkey's in the oven cooking and I've started on making some stuffing. Our family likes what's called an apple sausage stuffing. And I have not met anyone yet who doesn't like it. So today we're going to go over it. It's really quick and it's pretty easy. I've already taken 1 pound of just regular pork sausage. It's not Italian, just the regular pork sausage. It comes in like a tube. And I fried that up in this big pan. I've now drained that, set it aside, left the pan drippings in there. And in the meantime, while that was cooking, I've got a cup of chopped onion, a cup of chopped celery, and 3 sliced and diced apples. Okay, so a cup of celery, a cup of onions, and 3 apples. So I added a little bit more oil to this because I wanted about a 1/4 cup. And now I'm just going to add that. And I'm going to let this all sweat down for about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll put it all together. Okay, we now have the onions, celery, and apples cooked down a little bit. They've softened. So I'm going to take them off the oven. I'm going to bring it over here just so it's a little bit easier for us to see. We're just going to mix everything together now for the stuffing. Here's the pound of sausage that I had already cooked. So we're adding that back in. Now to that, I'm going to give this a quick little stir. We're going to be adding 1½ teaspoons of salt with 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning. So we'll add that. And then we've got, I think I'll add the eggs next. It doesn't really matter what order. I've got 2 eggs here that I've already beaten up a little bit. And we have 4 cups of breadcrumbs, and these are fresh breadcrumbs. I took some I took a loaf of just a really cheap bread, and I took about 8 slices, put it in the food processor, and made fresh breadcrumbs. Dumping that in, really now just tossing this all together. You're going to see it start to come together here. The egg will help bind it. And the pan juices that had cooked off from the apples and the onions and that little bit of grease from the pork sausage kind of all works to combine this. You can see it's starting to make a nice mess. Okay. Just want to make sure you get those breadcrumbs incorporated pretty good because otherwise they'll be a little bit too crunchy. So there, that looks pretty good. What I'll do now is I'm just going to spray any type of casserole pan that you have that will hold all of that. And I just spray it so that, not a ton, just enough so that this stuffing doesn't stick all around the edges. I've made that mistake before. So now I'm just going to put this into the baking pan. I'm going to pop it in the oven. It also goes at 325. So if you have room in your oven, which I do today, I'm just going to let this cook in there for about 35-40 minutes. You can check stuffing temperature. Should be 165 if you're concerned and you don't know if it's done or not done. I made this enough times to know that usually between the 35 and 40 minute mark it's done. You can cover it with foil if you like it to be on the softer side, or you can just leave it like this so that it gets like a little crusty top, but then it'll still be soft underneath. So this is all set. I'm going to put this in the oven. We'll come back in a little bit and we'll check on the turkey and the stuffing. Okay, we now have a beautifully roasted turkey, and we have some scrumptious apple sausage stuffing. You can see with this on the leg here, they've got really good, easy movement all the way around. That's one way of showing and being able to tell that it's done. I used a meat thermometer. I did have to cover the breast for a while because you want your dark meat, when you insert that thermometer up here in the top of the thigh, that dark meat needs to get to 180 degrees, while the breast on top is really done at 170. So the breast was done and the thigh, the inner dark meat, was not. So I just took some tin foil, kind of folded it and put it over the top of this. And it did take probably another good 35, 45 minutes to get the thigh area to the 180. But in the end, it all came out great. It looks good. The stuffing baked nicely right along with it. All you're going to need to do really now, you've got the two main, Thanksgiving ingredients. You got your turkey, you got your stuffing. So maybe make some mashed potatoes and then any other sides that you and your family like. Or assign them to somebody who might be coming if you're having anyone else over. Have some sweet potatoes, have just some frozen corn, make it easy. Or go extravagant and make corn souffle and somebody's favorite green bean casserole. So I'm going to just try to cut this. I'm no master carver. That's usually my husband's job. Actually, the whole turkey cooking is my husband's job. I don't really do that anymore. I stick with the sides and the stuffing. But I think I've got it so that I can get a piece here. I'm really backwards. Let's see. Okay. Well, you can see basically that it's cooked inside. It looks good, and I'm not really great at cutting and serving. So hopefully somebody in your house is. But I hope this helps you with the main ideas, the main dishes for your Thanksgiving dinner, and then we'll come back. We'll work on maybe a pie or two and finish up the meal. Good morning. Today we're going to talk about the pie that goes with your Thanksgiving dinner. So today we're going to do an apple pie. I think everybody likes apple pie. A few people, if they don't, then they're going to want the pumpkin, which is even easier. But we're going to accomplish an apple pie today. So I've already peeled and sliced about 7 to 8 apples. It depends on how much you want to use to fill your pie. I like a nice filled pie because they do cook down quite a bit. I've got a mixture of some Granny Smith and some Gala apples in here. Granny Smith always makes a great apple pie. I also have a crust that I worked on a little bit earlier. I made a pie crust, but please feel free to use good old Pillsbury pie crust. I do a lot of the time. Only on special occasions do I take the time to make a real pie crust. It is a lot of work, and it's a little tricky, and as far as they don't always come out great. So again, please feel free to go ahead and buy a pie crust somewhere. That's one reason I didn't go into it today, because that would be another episode of baking altogether. So like I said, I've got 7 to 8 apples in here already sliced. In here I've got a 1/4 cup of flour, a heaping teaspoon of cinnamon, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of some nutmeg and some allspice. You don't need to put allspice in there, and you can mix up your ratios of your spices. I like it with a little extra cinnamon. That's why I always do a heaping teaspoon. So I'm just going to toss that over my apples. And again, depending on how sweet or not you like your apple pie, I'm going to probably do about a 1/2 cup of sugar on top of it too. You can go anywhere from a 1/4 cup to about 3/4 of a cup. So we're just going to take that. We're going to mix this up. Now the flour will bake out, so don't worry about raw flour or anything like that. But the flour is also going to be our little thickening agent so that the pie won't be too runny. Because like I say, an apple pie is going to cook down, so it's going to make a lot of its own juices, which is great. That's what you want it to do, but you don't want it to be cut open and be too runny. So that's always, you know, a problem with apple pies and a lot of berry pies. So like I said, I did use 1/4 cup of flour. Okay, there we go. One little secret ingredient. About a teaspoon of vanilla. Just a shot over the top. There we go. To give it a little extra flavor. You can use brandy or whatever else you might have in that category, but I tend to use vanilla. And again, just stir that back up. Okay, now let's fill this pie. Now it's going to be heaping. Don't worry about it. We're going to try to get it all in there the best we can at this point. We'll catch those flyaways in a minute. Okay, just use your hands, try to get that in there the best you can. Try to leave a little bit of room around the edges so that when we go to put that top crust on, we can pinch it with the bottom crust to seal it. So that looks pretty good. We've got that in there, and again, you can see that's mounded right up to the top. But if we don't do that, you're going to have one of those really thin, skimpy pies. So, there we go. I'm going to wash up, roll out the top crust, and we'll come back and put that on top. Okay, we're going to put this top crust now onto the pie. I'm just going to flour my pin here a little bit, and I'll give you a quick trick. I always was taught to roll up the crust onto the rolling pin, then to lay it out onto the pie and let it flip, unroll it. Key there, just make sure that you've got that flouring or some good amount of flour on the rolling pin. Okay, we've got this on here pretty good, just trying to move it a little bit without trying to make any cracks. I'm going to do a quick cut around the edge to make that even with the bottom part of the crust. You can use scissors, a knife, whatever you need, just to kind of make them about the same size. It'll just make the pinching and crimping a little bit easier. Okay, so now I'm just going to take and fold under the pie crust all the way around. Okay, so that you're sealing it in, because remember I said we're going to have a lot of juice there. If we give this a decent seal underneath, getting that top crust under, folding it over that bottom crust, that will give us a better seal, and hopefully not as many juices will come out. So, but again, it's not, if juices come out, that's fine. What I do think is a good idea, and I do it myself, is to put something in the bottom of your oven to collect those juices, so you don't end up with a pile of burnt on, stuck on fruit juices. Okay, so that's on there pretty good. I'm going to give it a little crimp. Now, I've always done a finger thumb crimp because that's what my mom did. Now, you can eat just as easily, take a fork and use the tines kind of like this and press it all the way around if you're not comfortable with doing a finger thumb. And again, this is just sealing that crust again so that those juices won't go cooking and bubbling all over your oven. Aside from the mess, you want to keep them in there because that's a lot of flavor. Okay, we're almost done here. There we go. Now, The only thing left to do is to make a couple of vents on the top of it. We're going to just make a couple of air holes on here so that it doesn't puff up too much. You can make them into a design, make big A on the top, whatever you want to do. There we go. I've got those. Now I'm just going to brush this lightly. This is a mixture of an egg yolk and a little cream. Now you don't have to do this. Again, this is just to make it brown up and look pretty in the end. If you don't have any of these things on hand, don't worry about it. Your pie is still going to be fine and taste delicious. Okay, we're almost done here. And then what I'm going to do is sprinkle it with just a little bit of sugar on top. Again, this is just all for looks. This is not so much for taste as it is for looks. Okay, we've got that pie done. I don't do the edges too much because they tend to burn so easily. Now I use a thick, it's called sparkling sugar, and I just take a little bit and sprinkle it around the top there. There we go. Again, like I said, this is not necessary to make that pie taste good. This is all for looks. Okay, now the only other thing I do, I have a pie guard that I put on here. I'm going to leave it off for right now. I'm going to take this pie and go over here and pop it into a 375-degree oven for 20 minutes. Then, after 20 minutes, I'm going to turn the oven down to 350 and put that pie guard on. And that is going to keep those edges from burning and turning too dark. Now again, if you don't have, there we go, 20 minutes. If you don't have a pie guard, don't worry about it. Take some tin foil, crimp it lightly around the edges. I did that for years. If you're only going to be somebody who makes a pie once a year, don't go buy a special tool just for that. So we'll let that cook for a little bit, 20 minutes, like I said, at 375. Then about anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour at 350. You want that to see some bubbling up in there a little bit. Then we're going to know it's done, and then we'll take it out. So we'll come back in about an hour and check on it. Okay, we're back, and it's time to take this pie out of the oven. I've been checking on it, and it is now pretty brown on top. It's been bubbling over a little bit. I can see it in the bottom of the oven, but like I said, I put something down there to protect it. You can see, maybe you can see right here, it's still actually even bubbling up a little bit. I don't know, you can see it breathing is what I call it. Okay. That's what we were looking for, was to show that it was bubbling a little bit. I think it's a color I like. It's nice and brown, but not too dark. I did use the pie shield around the edge of it once it got to a color I liked. So there's an apple pie. We've done stuffing and we've done turkey. I think those are the basics for any really good Thanksgiving dinner. I hope that you and your family, no matter how it's being done this year, can enjoy your Thanksgiving, whether it's at a new home, whether it's by yourself at your own home, or whether you're able to still spend it with all of your friends and family like you always do. I hope this helped you in case you are trying to do something you hadn't done before, and good luck.